Hello and welcome to the last section of Chapter 5. This will be the last named discrete distribution we'll be working with. It's called the hypergeometric. This is featured in Lab B. So by the end of the lecture, you should be able to determine which random variables follow hypergeometric distribution using its definition, identify the three parameters of a hypergeometric distribution, and calculate the expected value of variance, mean, and probabilities associated with a hypergeometric random variable. Hypergeometric is rather difficult to work with, so don't expect too much work using the hypergeometric doing things by hand. You'll see the probability mass function and understand what I mean when you do see that. The hypergeometric distribution describes the probability of obtaining X successes in K draws or trials without replacement from a finite population that contains exactly m successes and n failures. See, I told you it was kind of complicated. Two keys to this are it's without replacement, so you're drawing and you're not putting it back, and the population's finite. If you are doing it with replacement, or if the population is infinite, then you've got a binomial random variable here. So this is a binomial constrained to a finite population without replacement. Well, when you get to the lab, you'll understand that it's better, but as you work through this slide deck, you'll see why we tend to focus on the binomial. Examples: number of hearts drawn from a deck without replacement. So I draw 5 cards. What's the probability 3 are hearts if I don't replace? Finite population, capital N's 50, 2, and it's without replacement. Number of sophomores counted in the library without recounting somebody. Number of parolees that returned to the Hill Correctional Center in Galesburg. In each of these cases, it's without replacement and the population's finite. So key. So hypergeometric, finite, and no replacement. Now you'll find out, and I think the lab helps with this, that if your population is sufficiently large but not infinite, then the advantage of using the hypergeometric is very small. You might as well stick with the binomial. Recall that the probability mass function provides the probability of each element for the sample space. For a hypergeometric random variable, this is the sample space. See, notice automatically that we see that the hypergeometric is rather complicated to work with. For the binomial, it's just from 0 to n. Here, it's the larger of 0 and k minus n, all the way up to the minimum of k and m. How do we parameterize this? There's lots of ways of parameterizing the hypergeometric. That's another frustrating thing with the binomial. It's always n and p or n and pi. For the hypergeometric, there's at least a half dozen ways. In fact, Hawks uses a way that's different from either R or the Forsberg text. We can do it by successes and total, or by successes and failures, or by a combination of the two. But fundamentally, the probability mass function here at the bottom is just the number of ways to succeed times the number of ways to fail divided by the number of ways you can have those n trials. And these are combinations, so review of chapter 4 would not be unwise. So here's the probability mass function. It's m choose x times n choose k minus x divided by m plus n over choose k. X is the number of successes you care about. M is the number of successes in the population. In this case, little n is the number of failures in the population. So x is the number of successes in your sample. K minus x will be the number of failures in your sample. And then the denominator is just going to be the total population size divided by the total sample size. And notice the switch here, k is now the sample size, not n. And trust me, this is one of the better parameterizations of the hypergeometric. Here's another one. Here, k will be the population successes instead of little m. N will be the population size, which means n minus k will be the population failures. X will be the successes in your sample, n minus x will be the failures in your sample. Here, n will be the sample size, so choose n will be the denominator. They say the same things. They're using different letters to represent what those things are, but they're saying the same thing. This is the number of ways of getting X successes from the population. This is the number of ways of getting your specific number of failures in your population. And this is the number of possible samples you can draw from that population. Same as it was for the previous. Expected value of a hypergeometric does not need to be memorized. You've got this in your notes, so make sure you know where you can locate it. It's just k, your sample size, times p, the probability of a success in the population. M is the number of successes, n is the number of failures, so n plus m is a population size. So this m over n plus m is just the probability of a success in the population. And that's the sample size, so it's essentially n times p, but we're using different letters. Here's the variance. It's your sample size times the probability of a success in the population times the probability of a failure in the population times an adjustment factor. Notice this is thinking back to binomial. This would be n times p times 1 minus p times some other number. Notice this number is always going to be between 0 and 1, which means that the variance of a hypergeometric is always going to be smaller than that of a binomial. That's important. Variance of a hypergeometric is always going to be less than or equal to, for extremely large sample sizes, that of a binomial, as long as k is not equal to 1. If k is equal to 1, then there is absolutely no difference between a binomial and a hypergeometric. Go back to the definition of a hypergeometric to see why that's the case. The big difference is with replacement or without. If you're only drawing one thing, it doesn't matter if you replace it or not. It's the same probability. This is another way of saying exactly what I did. Understand what the parameters represent. Don't get hung up on the formulas themselves. Understand that the expected value is just the sample size times the probability of a success in the population. The variance is n times p times 1 minus p times some adjustment factor. So here's a couple examples. Okay, here's a few examples. Let x be the number of spades drawn out of 4 draws from a deck of cards without replacement. If the deck is fair, then it's clear that x follows a hypergeometric. With m equal 13, the number of successes in the population is 13. N, the number of failures in the population, is 39. And our sample size k is 4. Success, failure, sample size. So here are the probabilities, or here are the questions. What's the probability of getting 1 spade? What's the probability of getting at most 3 spades? And what's the expected number of spades? Probability of getting 1 spade, plug and chug. Probability x is equal to 1. We're given m is 13, x is 1, n is 39, k is 4, 4 minus 1 is 3. A little check here. 13 plus 39 has to be 52. 1 plus 3 has to be 4. Why is that a check? This first refers to the number of ways of getting those successes. The second is the number of ways of getting those failures. And the total is just failures plus successes. So the probability of getting one spade is 0.438847539. Here it is in R. Probability that x is equal to 1, so it's D and a 1 there. This is a hypergeometric, so the stem is hyper. Parameters m is 13, n is 39, k is 4. By the way, this is the parameterization that R uses, m, n, k. Probability of getting at most 3 spades. This is a less than or equal to question. Less than or equal to 3. Since it is a cumulative, a less than or equal to, we can use the p version. 3, m, n, and k. So the probability of getting at most 3 spades is 0.9973589. In other words, pretty good chance that you'll get at most 3. What's the expected number of spades? Sample size times successes over trials. So the expected number of spades is going to be 1. Make sure this result makes sense, especially thinking about lab B. A quarter of the deck is spades. I draw 4, so I'd expect 1. Example 2, I wonder if Stat 200 attracts third-year students at a greater rate than other courses. So X will be the number of third years in Stat 200. We know that the number of third-year students at Knox is 356. We know the number of non-third years is 978. We got that from the registrar's website. Therefore, those are population numbers. In this stat course, there's 41 students. 18 are third years. So we need to calculate the probability x is greater than or equal to 18. Given m is 356, n is 978, and k is 41. This is in the wrong direction. It's got to be a less than or equal to. So using the complements rule, this is 1 minus probability of x is less than or equal to 17. This is what it is in R, 1 minus probability under hypergeometric of x being less than or equal to, oops, that should be a 17. So this number here should be 17, not 18. M, n, and k are given to us previously. This is probably around 0.005. Very small probability of this happening. Therefore, it appears as though third years are overrepresented in this course. Or, I'm wrong about M, N, and K. I trust the registrar to give me these two numbers. I know I can count to 41. Therefore, I'm going to conclude that third years are indeed overrepresented. If we were to pretend this was a binomial, we get a probability of 0.00537. Not much of a difference between these two. And the reason why there's not much of a difference between the two is because the population size is, quote, rather large. It's 1,300 or so. So once you get a large population, hypergeometric and binomial are essentially the same thing. I wonder if my Math 121 attracts fourth-year students at a lower rate than other courses. Let x be the number of fourth years in my Math 121 course. According to the registrar's website, we know the number of fourth years at Knox is 278. Non-fourth years is 1056. In my 121, there are 30 students. 3 are fourth years. So I need to calculate the probability of x being less than or equal to 3. Where x follows a hypergeometric distribution, with m, n, and k equal to 278, 1056, and 30. P hyper, P because it's less than or equal to. We got it at the 3, I made it right this time. M, N, and K given to us by the registrar's website and me being able to count the class. This is 10%. Because the probability is not that small, there does not seem to be much evidence that Math 121 attracts fourth years at a lower rate than other courses. 10%, not that small. Again, this goes back to, I think it was the binomial slide deck where we started talking about, okay, what's the difference between, no, it was the Poisson and the crimes. What's the difference between not that much evidence and sufficient evidence? So you might want to write in the margin again, arrow there of asking the question. Difference between sufficient evidence and not sufficient evidence. By the way, 0.099 versus 0.102, hypergeometric versus binomial. Don't get me wrong, the hypergeometric is the correct distribution, and doing this by using R is pretty darn easy, so there's no reason to use the binomial approximation. But if you were doing it by hand or using some things that we will be doing in this class in the future that are predicated on the binomial, as long as your sample size is large enough, you can use those things, those future things, for both the binomial and the hypergeometric. So the summary: hypergeometric models the number of successes out of a specific number of trials when the population is finite and the elements cannot be selected multiple times. There are multiple ways of parameterizing this distribution. I gave you 2 of them, but they all specify the sample size, the number of successes, the failures in the population in some way. You saw the PMFs of the hypergeometric, the mean and the variance of the hypergeometric. Again, you should not spend your time memorizing those. Have them in your notes and make sure you're able to access them and use them. In the future, this lecture is the end of the discrete distributions. The future will be continuous distributions. That'll start with chapter 6. We've got the 4 R functions. All of them have the stem of hyper for the hypergeometric. They all require you to specify M, N, and K. Again, the D is for the equals probabilities. The P is for less than or equal. The R is for generating a random sample from that distribution. And the Q is for the quantile. So if I want the median, I'll put 0.5 for P, and I'll be able to get the median. If I want the third quartile, I would put 0.75 in here for P and get the third quartile. Course readings, section 5.4 in Hawks. This is appendix A6 in R for Starters. Wikipedia's got an interesting page on the hypergeometric. Again, it'll give you a taste of where you can find the formulas if you forget them, and it'll show you a lot of things that we can do with this probability stuff. Which brings us to the 3 intra-lecture questions. Question 1, what are the 5 requirements for a random variable to follow a binomial distribution? Yes, this is for the binomial distribution. You must know those 5. 2, what's the difference between a binomial and a hypergeometric variable? And question 3, what's the difference between a binomial and a Poisson random variable? So a little hint here, seems like we're focusing on the binomial as being the most important distribution in this chapter. If it seems that way, then good, because it is. But also you're seeing how close the Poisson and the hypergeometric are to the binomial when they are close, and by extension when they're not close. And that's it. Take care.